For the past year, I've had a passing interest in Bungie's Marathon revival. I thought it had a neat art style, and going into the gameplay reveal, I wasn't really all that excited. The last thing I really want right now was a new dedicated PvP game. However, I'm way too excited to get my grubby gamer hands all over this game. And hopefully, over the next 10-20 minutes or however long this video ends up being, I'll do a good enough job explaining why, because it's really hard to articulate my excitement when I am an acoustic mess. Now, I don't have a connection to Marathon, but I've been a fan of Bungie's ever since I played Halo 1 on the original Xbox. I still remember playing a demo for Halo that was on this demo disc that we had, and just being blown away by the intro to the Silent Cartographer, which might just be one of the best FPS levels ever made, but that's a different video topic entirely. Point is, that connection to the studio definitely plays a big part of why I'm so excited to give Marathon a try, and why I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since watching the gameplay reveal, and all the other gameplay that I've managed to find on the internet since Saturday. I'm going to try and wrangle these thoughts together, but if I go on tangents or go off topic, I'm just gonna blame being an ADHD mess. I will also go into some stuff that I'm worried about or don't like, which there definitely is a couple thoughts, but that'll be at the end of the video. First off, I'm excited that this is basically the first AAA attempt at an extraction shooter. It might feel like this genre that is overcrowded or full of games, but honestly, I can only count on my hand a couple of extraction shooters, like Hunt Showdown, Escape from Tarkov. There's probably a few other indie extraction games, but overall, it's a genre that doesn't have too many contenders in the ring at the moment, and it's a genre primed for a team with a focused vision to jump in and make a polished game that's fun. Plus, aside from Hunt Showdown, it's going to be one of the only extraction shooters available on console. So to jump into my thoughts on Marathon, I'm going to jump into the biggest reason why I'm excited. This has been like one of the things on my mind that I've been thinking about a lot these past couple days, and that's the fact that this is a very clear and focused game from Bungie. As someone that's a lapsed Destiny player who sunk in an ungodly amount of hours into both games since Alpha D1, Destiny has always felt like a game at times that didn't know what it wanted to be. Did it want to be a PvE focused looter shooter? Did it want to be a hardcore PvP focused experience? It tried to juggle doing both things, and that's had its ups and downs. I'm not an expert or anything or a hyper competitive PvP player, but my enjoyment of Destiny and its various modes always swayed back and forth, and were a lot of times that I felt balance was all over the place due to Bungie having to balance abilities and exotics for both PvE and PvP. Like, they couldn't just design a weapon only for PvE with like some crazy effects. They also had to make sure that that weapon would also be balanced for PvP, and that is just a lot to consider for game design. Marathon, however, is clear up front. This is a PvPvE extraction shooter. No RPG elements, no guns with randomly rolled perks or stats. Character abilities do remain, but they seem very toned down compared to Destiny. From the little bit of gameplay footage Bungie has released, each ability seems impactful in a tactical sense, I think, but nothing that will outright kill your enemies in the same way a hunter's throwing knife would, or a titan's shoulder tackle. Instead, you have stuff like different dashes and the ability to go invisible, or being able to ping enemies. There are a couple abilities that do damage and can potentially kill your enemies, but I'm interested in seeing how balanced they feel and how much damage they do once I'm able to actually get my hands on the game. But this clear focus and fresh new gameplay sandbox excites me a lot. The weaponry shown in the gameplay looks fun to use, as well as looks great stylistically. Side note, huge fucking fan of this game's visual style. That alone makes me super excited for this game. And I think that without having to balance weapon design and damage numbers around a robust PvE experience like raids and strikes, focusing only on this singular extraction game mode and balancing the PvE with the PvP together instead of having them be two separate things entirely would allow Bungie more freedom to really make a dialed in experience with an interesting weapon sandbox that can also evolve over time and seasons in ways that Destiny never could, because with Destiny, Bungie can't just erase weapons or completely overhaul existing weapons without invalidating what players have earned or unlocked through hours of grinding. In Destiny, unless you're an exotic weapon, all the weapons had to adhere to the core weapon archetypes. hand cannon, auto rifle, fusion rifle, etc., which all function similarly. In Marathon, Bungie could just focus on, say, 1 or 2 auto rifles and make sure those 2 weapons feel great to use and relatively balanced in the wider gameplay sandbox. A lot of the time in Destiny, the meta just boils down to 1 or 2 weapons, as they always do in these kinds of games. And everything else you weren't really using unless you didn't have another choice. So when I think about the possibilities of a brand new Bungie sandbox and Bungie being untethered from the baggage of Destiny, but bringing in the knowledge of designing Destiny weapons and abilities and putting all that knowledge into a focused PvPvE experience that knows what it wants to be, I get super excited of the possibilities. Okay, so if my first reason to be excited is the brand new gameplay sandbox from Bungie and the weapons and the abilities, then what's the next one? The enemy AI. Now, I've always thought Bungie's enemy AI in their shooters was leagues above anyone else in the genre. I've replayed Bungie's Halo games so much, and each time I do, it's always a different experience. The AI always reacts in some new way that tickles my brain because I recognize it's different, and I'm like, hey, the enemy didn't do that last time. I feel that definitely carried over into Destiny. I think in comparison to Halo, it might have been a little less reactive, but each enemy type was still fun to fight and each faction unique enough from each other that it never got that old fighting them. But at the time of writing, I haven't touched Destiny since roughly Lightfall launched, so it's been a while and I'm just going off of my memory, so take everything I say about Destiny with a grain of salt or whatever, right? Based off the gameplay I've seen of Marathon, it's hard for me to gauge exactly how the AI enemies will live up to my memory of Halo and Destiny's AI, but because the game is not an RPG and Bungie can balance the AI more tightly with less variance and player power, they can make the AI an interesting challenge and obstacle in each match in ways that'll be more reminiscent of playing Halo or something, right? I'm really excited to see how the enemy AI reacts to players in a match. I'm interested to see if there's going to be like enemy patrols patrolling zones of the map that players will just run into, see how different the enemy AI spawns are going to be every time. Surely there's going to be locations and POIs where you have enemies and set spawn locations and stuff. I'm curious if they're going to be the same enemy types each round, or if you can have higher ranking enemies that spawn in locations where there weren't higher ranking enemies before in the last match, if that makes sense. According to content creators that have played Marathon, it sounds like the enemy AI is actually kind of brutal in this game, and I'm super excited to see what kinds of enemies Bungie cooks up for it. So far, we've just seen AI that looks like robot soldiers. A standout enemy type I spotted being this enemy that was invisible and it ambushed players that went into a building, and it looked terrifying, especially because despite 2 players taking them on, they still took quite a bit of firepower to bring down. It immediately reminded me of fighting invisible elites from Halo. I don't remember ever fighting something quite like that in Destiny. Lastly, as I write this, I've been listening to Hidden Xperia's Marathon lore videos and learning that the main enemies in the original trilogy of games were aliens. I'm gonna be really surprised if Marathon doesn't eventually add alien enemies as a faction. If not at launch, then soon after, maybe during the first season. By the way, big recommend Xperia's Marathon lore videos. I'm gonna link the first one in the description. Go listen to that, because listening to those has just made my mind go crazy with speculation on what they could potentially add to Marathon down the road. I'm gonna add something really quick that wasn't in the script as I edit this video. I've finished all the lore videos now, and re-watching the Marathon cinematic trailer, there is this scene where you see a floating creature thing with like a long cape, and this design looks a lot like one of the alien enemies in the original Marathon trilogy. So I think this scene is probably teasing not only that enemy aliens are on the way, but also I think this is probably our first glimpse at the wreckage of the Marathon ship itself, which Bungie has already confirmed is going to be a 4th map coming to the game during season 1. I'm super excited to see what they do, because Marathon lore goes crazy. Watch those videos. All right, back to the video. I think that's about all I can really say about the enemy AI until I get to try out the game. If Bungie lives up to their legacy of its previous games though, oh boy, I'm excited to see what they cook up. Next up is something I'm actually really excited about, and that's going to be the live service elements. Now, I'm sure you probably just rolled your eyes hearing me say those two dreaded words, but hear me out. Destiny was massively ambitious, especially at the time it launched. Bungie spent the last 10 years trying to meet the rabid hunger of a fan base that constantly craves new dungeons and raids, PvP experiences, PvE experiences, constant balance changes. And I really think that after a decade, bringing all of that knowledge and experience in maintaining Destiny, which again is this massive game with a lot going on and a lot of different things in it, bringing that experience into a more focused game. Again, this is just an extraction shooter, just PvPvE, 3 maps at launch, 6 characters, relatively small scale, but that small scale allows Bungie to be incredibly nimble in the way that they make changes or update the game. Something else I read that excites me regarding the game's live service plans is that each season there's going to be a Tarkov-esque inventory wipe, and I think setting that expectation this early is great because I know there's going to be people that don't like it, and that's fine. This isn't going to be a game for everyone, and I think that's fine. In fact, I think there needs to be more games not made for everyone. That's kind of the whole problem with AAA games, is that they try to make everything for everyone. Different topic, that's for a different video, but having the inventory wipe is going to be great because that means Bungie is going to be able to drastically change weapons or remove weapons or add in new ones every season and keep things fresh. So say one weapon just dominates the whole season, Bungie can easily just pull it out of rotation for the next season. Although in a game where you lose everything when you die, it actually makes me wonder, like, if one weapon being dominant is even going to be a huge issue. Because if they balance the game right, then even if one person has like a dominant weapon, there's still like a chance that you can take them out in a match and then take that weapon for yourself. And it'd just be a real fascinating experience to like defeat somebody that has an exotic weapon and then take it for yourself. It's gonna feel awful if you end up losing that weapon though, but it's kind of exciting. I don't know, that's what I like. It's one thing that I both love and hate about the idea of an extraction shooter is like permanently losing like some of the rarest stuff in the game you could ever get. I don't know, it's a double-edged sword, but again, that's another reason why I'm excited to try this game out. Now, this is entirely speculation on my part, right? But wouldn't it be fun if Bungie had a specific employee game master overseeing Marathon, like how Arrowhead has a game master dictating Helldivers, playing God and just like throwing dynamic events at players and causing special events to happen during some matches? I don't know if that's something they'd ever do, but again, with something this focused, it's entirely possible, and Bungie is big enough to do it. I just think that'd be fun. So those are the biggest reasons I'm excited for Marathon. There's a lot of other smaller stuff, like I'm just absolutely in love with this game's art direction. I love the bright poppy colors and unique designs mixed with this undertone of sci-fi horror and hyper corporatism. It's like Mirror's Edge meets Destiny, and the kill confirmation icon that pops up, like the little skull pixel thing. I love that so much. It's so cool. This game scratches a very particular part of my brain that just loves unique art direction. There was also this cinematic trailer Bungie released that is probably my favorite video game cinematic ever. I just love it. I love the high concept, sci-fi, artsy, everything about it. Also, they got the voice actor for Adam Jensen from Deus Ex Human Revolution to do one of the characters' voices in this game, and I love it. I loved his performance from those games. I even loved him in Starfield. It was the one thing I really liked about Starfield. And it makes me sad that Marathon is just a extraction PvPvE shooter, right? Because all of the cinematic stuff Bungie released is so interesting. It pulls you in. It makes you want to learn more about this world. And it could make for some really like cool single player set piece moments. But we're not going to have that because it's just an extraction shooter, which, you know, is also fine. I'm still really excited for this. This is also a good segue into what I'm not so keen on regarding this game. Based on everything I've said, you probably assumed I might be some blind Bungie shill. And honestly, no. I've been out of love with Destiny for so long that I can't look at the game without feeling burnout or having some traumatic experiences come back to mind from when I used to raid. If you've also played Destiny, I'm pretty sure you also have some raid horror stories. Now, the first worry, like I just mentioned, is the fact that there's no single player campaign or anything like that. Again, it's disappointing, but I'm not like knocking what Marathon is because single player is not there. Again, right, I think the game being focused around this one game mode and this one experience is really going to benefit the game long term. Plus, Bungie seems very keen on doing these ARG heavy community events to tease out bits of the game's story and leaving it to the community to piece together puzzle pieces of the game's lore. And I do love that approach to things. I think it's fun. I think it keeps a community very engaged. I always loved it when Destiny had these little secrets, and when somebody figures it out, then it just blows up into the entire community, like doing this thing and unlocking new content. And that's something they really want to do with Marathon, to the point where I have heard some people talk about how there's going to be like secret dungeons, or how there could be secrets in the maps, and if the players figure out this like secret code or something, it'll unlock a whole new section of the map. If Bungie can successfully pull that stuff off, that's going to be fantastic. Now, my second worry in Marathon is the focus on squad play. Now, you can play solo and disable squad fill if you want, but you'll still be thrown into matches with squads of 3. And I don't know if matchmaking will be weighted towards putting you with other solos or duos or not, but I can't imagine having a lot of people to play this game with personally. Just because a lot of the people I know prefer different types of games. They may not be into like the big hardcore extraction shooter concept that this game is. So it's going to be hard for me to convince any of my normal crew to play with me. So hopefully the solo experience doesn't feel terrible or suck, or the duo experience either for that matter. And I think that's it for my worries, really. It's just those two things, but especially the worry about solo play being balanced could be a huge deal breaker for me. It's why I never even bothered to try and play Apex Legends much, because I had a really hard time just finding 2 friends that would play that with me that were also interested in playing and playing it consistently. And it just kind of bummed me out and stressed me out, because I felt like I was missing out on being able to play this cool, fun game. But I knew I was just going to have a miserable experience if I tried to play it alone or with randoms. Because despite being a streamer and a content creator and stuff, I'm very introverted, and it's very nerve-wracking, and it makes me nervous to interact with new people. But the excitement that I have for Marathon does make me want to try. Maybe when the game comes out, I will try to communicate with random squad fills and see what happens. But if I have to rely on being matched with a good squad to have fun, then that's just going to make me not have fun with the game. So now that kind of brings me to the end of the video. If I wasn't clear, I'm pretty excited. A lot of the excitement does rely on me giving Bungie the benefit of the doubt that they want to make a good video game, which I'm sure they are. Surely this game won't have a launch as bad as Destiny 2 or 1, right? If I may get some thoughts off my chest here at the end of the video, it's so easy to be cynical and write a game off just because this is technically Sony owned, and Sony has made some very questionable choices in the past year, or write something else off because it's from a AAA publisher you don't like. And it's tiring. I see and read so much crap that is blatantly false, or the person spewing toxic rhetoric or making bad faith arguments, and it frustrates me so much that I want to grab them. I want to grab them and I want to shake them. Maybe it's just inflicting damage to myself by reading it, but I don't try to seek a lot of it out. A lot of the time it just appears in my feed, and I just love video games. I love the art, I love the creativity, I love the passion, and I want to use whatever little platform I can climb onto as a VTuber or content creator and just shout that I love video games, and I want to talk about them in a way that is constructive and interesting and beneficial to the community, instead of just trying to tear the community down. Because I see so much, it makes me think that a lot of people saying these negative things, I wonder if they even like video games to begin with. because what's the point in comparing Marathon right now to something like Concord, which, yeah, Concord did fail. I played the beta. The beta didn't blow me away. It was never going to be a game I was going to pay money to play because it just felt like Destiny Crucible, but with hero characters, and that wasn't an experience I actively wanted. But this game, this extraction shooter experience, is something I want. It's something that I can only really get if I play Tarkov. I tried playing Hunt Showdown the other night as I record this voiceover, and it doesn't scratch that same itch because those enemies in Hunt are so different to try and take down and work around. And I don't really like fighting the zombies. It just felt cumbersome. And trying to explain why that would be a whole other video topic that I can't get into at the end of this one. So yeah, I think in closing, I'm excited for Marathon. I think there's a market for it. It definitely fills this void that I have for a shooter of this type that no other game can scratch. It's going to be one of the only games like it even available on a console, which is huge. And I think it's exciting. It's really exciting to see a studio with Bungie's size and budget to tackle this smaller focused game for a very specific group of people. And I am very excited to see how it feels once I get to play it and how the full package shapes up to be when it launches in September. That's it. That's my hockey talk. Thank you for listening. Be excellent to each other and have a good night or day or time zone or whenever it is you listen to this. Bye-bye.